I was sleeping on the far side of my son's house, the room with the stubborn window that stuck on humid nights and the closet that smelled like old cedar and dryer sheets, when I heard somebody laugh in the kitchen at 2:47 a.m. Not the laugh you hear when folks tell a joke, but the kind folks use when they think a plan is settling into place. I lay still, counting the spaces between the fridge hum and the air vent clicking off, and I knew it was Shauna's laugh. I knew my daughter-in-law's night voice from the way she stretched her vowels like taffy, the way she turned soft words into tools. "She's getting worse," she whispered to somebody on speaker. "Tomorrow I'll take her down there to sign. After that, everything will be simple." If you're hearing my story, please subscribe so more voices like mine can be heard. I'm 50 years old, name's Ruth Elaine Carter. Ruth to the church, Ms. Carter to the kids at the community center, and Mama to my child, though he's grown and got his own baby now. We're in South DeKalb County outside Atlanta, where hydrangeas argue with the heat and the train tracks sing every night around 2. I came to stay with my son, Marcus, and his wife, Shayna, after my ankle slipped off the last step of my back porch in May. The county hospital set me in a cast. The physical therapist nodded about a few months, and my own little house, my mortgage finally paid, felt bigger than a woman on crutches ought to navigate alone. So I said yes when Marcus offered the guest room and a soft place to heal. I brought my quilt, my Bible, and 1 tin of pecans I keep for pie. I told myself it was temporary. That word can be a lullaby if you sing it too often. Shauna had rules that came folded into compliments. "I love how you fold towels, Ms. Ruth," she would chirp, "but our system is tri-fold, pretty please." "I adore your collard greens," she'd say. "Let's skip the ham hock, the sodium." If I reached for a second cup of coffee, she'd slide a glass of water my way and kiss the air. Caffeine is not your friend at our age. At our age, I thought, and tucked the small sting into the back pocket of my mind. People show you their map without meaning to. You just have to decide when to start following it. That night, the house wore rain like a shawl. The gutters talked. The baby, my sweet Jada with cheeks like dewberries, had finally slept, worn out from teething and a day of being admired. Marcus had passed out on the couch watching basketball, socks abandoned like little flags. I lay in the guest room, one hand under my cheek, and listened as Shauna's voice went from sugar to vinegar. "Yes, Dr. Kemp, I told you. She calls the bank and gets confused. She forgot her online password again. I had to help. She's at risk. And the house? We got a plan for the house." I sat up slow, the cast thudding against carpet, and put my ear to the cracked door. The hall smelled like lemon cleaner and the jasmine oil Shauna dabbed behind her ears when she wanted to look like Sunday. I heard paper rustle, heard her drop her whisper low. "No, Marcus doesn't have to know the timing. Trust me, he'll thank me later." I swallowed a dry lump of air and thought about the week behind me. Missing mail, a banker's clerk who acted like he knew my name better than I did, the way Shauna had kept my purse on the top shelf for safekeeping. The small things that seem like kindness until you put them in a row and they make an arrow. The first time something felt truly wrong was at the pharmacy 2 weeks back. I walked in with my cane, said hello to the same lady who has rung up my vitamin D since the pandemic, and asked about my regular prescription. She blinked at her screen. "Huh, Miss Carter. Says here you changed to a different manufacturer?" She squinted. "And there's a note. Caregiver approval only." Caregiver. I laughed then, a polite little thing, because sometimes disbelief is how you keep from crying. I told her I'd be back and went straight to the parking lot. I texted Marcus, just a simple, "all good," and he wrote back, "always, Ma." I put a pin in it, started a page in my notebook labeled questions, and tried to be grateful for a roof that wasn't mine to mop if it leaked. But the questions multiplied. Shauna started bringing in my mail already opened. "Oh, it came slit like that," she'd say, with that same kiss-the-air smile. The credit union left me a voicemail asking to confirm a change to preferred contact. When I called back, a young man putting on his professional voice said, "We received an authorization to add your daughter to your accounts." I told him I didn't have a daughter. I have a daughter-in-law with a good manicure. He apologized 6 times and took the note off. I went back to my notebook, wrote DL account, circled it, and underlined once more than necessary. The house had rhythms I loved. Jada's laugh at bath time, the smell of warm bottles and apple puree, the way Marcus kissed his baby like his heart had a new wing in it. But there were new rhythms, too. Shauna made a habit of standing in doorways I tried to close. She'd appear at my shoulder if I was on my phone. She'd help me down the steps like I was made of glass, but it wasn't care. It was custody. Anybody who's been held wrong can tell the difference. That's why, when I heard her say sign at 2:47 a.m., I slid on my flats and moved quiet as a thought into the hallway. The AC grunted alive. The kitchen light made a white square on the floor. I could see her reflection in the microwave door, phone to her ear, her silk bonnet shining like a wary moon. "Mama's old friend is a notary," she murmured. "She'll come by noon. We'll keep Ruth comfortable. These forms can be confusing. We'll just guide her hand." Guide her hand. I pressed my palm against the wall to keep from shaking. I had met Dr. Kemp once, accidentally, heard the name when Shauna put me on speaker in the car a month ago. "My mother-in-law's memory is spotty," she'd said then, batting at me playfully like it was a joke between women. "Any tips?" I had smiled because that's what you do when you don't yet recognize a blade. That night, I watched her put the phone down like she'd just fixed a difficult recipe. She opened the silverware drawer and rearranged the spoons. People who need control will tidy things that aren't messy. She poured herself a little glass of wine, and when she lifted it, I saw the papers spread on the counter. Big fonts, friendly boxes, the kind of forms that call themselves simple, like the devil calling himself a neighbor. I walked backward to my room the way you walk away from a snake, slow, eyes on the thing, no sudden myths of trust. I closed the door, sat on the bed, and took a breath that touched the bottom of my lungs. My ankle throbbed. I reached under the bed for my tote, took out the notebook, and wrote in my neat church handwriting, 2:47 a.m., heard Shauna on phone, sign, tomorrow, house, caregiver. Then I opened my phone and texted 2 people who have never once made me feel small. First, Pastor Lee, whose sermons are half prayer and half instruction manual for messy lives. "You awake?" I wrote. "I might need a witness tomorrow." He answered in 3 dots, then, "Always, Sister Ruth." Second, my neighbor, back home, Auntie Dot, the retired school secretary who knows hire a locksmith, notary, and how to keep a secret until it's time to open it. "You up?" I typed. She wrote back, "I'm 80, child. I go to bed with the sun. But for you, yes." I didn't sleep. I listened. The refrigerator took a breath. The rain slowed. Shauna's steps moved past my door light as a cat. I thought about the quilt at my feet, the one my mama called the Sunday sunset. Burnt orange and cranberry, little squares of old dresses hidden in its corners like whispers. I thought about my house, the rose bush out front that throws a tantrum every June and then forgives itself. I thought about Marcus at 9 years old, bringing me the world's ugliest Mother's Day card and watching my face like it could teach him what love looks like. He'd always been a helper, my boy. That good trait can be a leash if somebody pulls hard enough. When the clock on my screen said 4:12, I switched plans. My first instinct had been to wake Marcus, put the papers in his hands, ask him if this looked like love or its ghost. But sudden truths can fall like heavy things on the wrong foot. I needed daylight. I needed paper that could outrun charming people. And I needed to be gone before a pen appeared next to a smile. My ankle would argue, but it could come along. I slid on my jeans, tucked my notebook into the pocket of my robe, and put my church shoes on because they know how to carry a decision. I took my purse down from the top shelf. I had moved it there myself that evening when Shauna was at Target, just to see if it would stay. It didn't. She'd taken it down, checked for me, and put it back a little too neatly. I thumbed through it. ID, check. Debit card, check. The little flash drive with scans of my deed and policy, and the letter my mama wrote me in '98, "Don't sign what you don't understand." Check. I slipped the flash into the pocket of my robe, wrote on the next page of my notebook, "Leave with documents, go to Dot, then Pastor." I opened my door, and the house took a breath like it was listening too. On the wall by the thermostat, Shauna had hung a little metal sign. "Bless this mess." I guess it's meant to be cute. I touched the thermostat, felt the cool click, and walked. In the living room, Marcus slept open-mouthed, hand on his chest like a man trying to hold his heart steady even in dreams. Jada's baby monitor glowed. The camera eye was pointed at the crib. I nodded at it like you nod at a stranger who might tell the truth if asked right. At the kitchen island, the papers still shook a little from being alive with somebody's intentions. I didn't touch them. I didn't need Shauna to wake up and say, "You snooped." Instead, I opened a drawer, took out a small Post-it, and wrote in blue pen, because blue pen looks like it means business. "Left for fresh air, back later." I stuck it to the fridge like a decoy and prayed Shauna kept underestimating me long enough for me to be underestimated outside. The back door squeaked at 4:39 a.m. I held the handle, eased the squeak into a sigh, and stepped into a yard that smelled like wet earth and the neighbor's hickory smoke that never really leaves. The sky was one shade lighter than sorrow. I could hear the highway a mile off, telling its faithful morning story. I pulled the gate slow. It tended to stick. I'd noticed that the first week and told myself not to fix it. A woman can be useful without repairing every hinge she meets. The grass took my shoes without argument and gave my steps back soft. I walked down the alley toward the street, past the trash bins, past the hydrangeas, past the spot where Shayna had once posed with a mason jar of lemonade mid-afternoon for Instagram. Caption, "Caregiving is holy work." Lord, I thought, help me not laugh ugly. At the street, the intersection light turned lazy from blinking red to green, like it had a sense of humor. I kept to the sidewalk, a slow, steady pace, the cane clicking the beat my heart tried to keep. The dawn smelled like rain and bus brakes and somebody's breakfast biscuits. A stray cat considered me, decided I was too busy to feed it, and went on about its business. Maybe I looked like a woman who had a plan. Maybe I was pretending, and the pretending worked. Auntie Dot lives 5 blocks from my house, 2 from the church, and 7 from Marcus's if you take the route with fewer hills. I took the flatter way. Halfway there, a patrol car rolled by, slow as a thought, and the deputy inside, young, brown-skinned, and polite, made that nod people make when they're trying not to ask, "Ma'am, you all right?" I waved soft, held up my cane like a permission slip, and kept going. I didn't want a patrol call on Marcus's street this morning. I wanted to arrive at Dot's door with the story still in my own mouth. By the time I reached her porch, the birds had decided to practice. Dot keeps wind chimes made out of spoons and faith, and they sang too. Her porch light clicked on before I could knock. She opened the door in a robe the color of peppermint tea and slippers that have seen too much life to judge anybody else's. "Chile," she said, reaching for my elbow. "You look like a decision." "I heard her," I said. "She's moving fast." Dot's kitchen smelled like yesterday's cornbread and a plan. She set me at the table, put my purse under my chair like a mama dog tucking in a pup, and poured me diner-strong coffee that left no room for niceties. "Talk," she said, and I did. Every word, every whisper, the midnight laugh, the papers, caregiver, sign, house. I showed her my notebook. She tapped the evidence with one red nail like a judge tapping a bench. "All right," she said. "We're going to do 3 things before 9. You're going to the credit union to set flags and remove any accidental caregiver mess. You're going to the county clerk to pull a fresh copy of your deed and file a note of concern. There's a way to do it that in plain English says, don't do nothing new with this house unless this woman stands here. And we're going to Pastor Lee because witnesses close doors that liars leave open. I left a post-it that said I was taking air, I told her. And there, in Dot's kitchen, we both let out the kind of laugh that sounds like relief, sneaking onto the stage dressed as comedy. Dot grabbed her key ring, a jangling prayer, and texted her cousin Lori, who notarizes half the South Side. On standby, she told me, but we ain't signing nothing Shauna cooked up. We sign what we need. She sent another text to her nephew, who works mornings at the county clerk's office. Tyrone says ask for Ms. Glass. Tell her Dot sent you. Bring your ID and your common sense. We stopped at the church first because even strategy likes a benediction. Dawn sat on that brick building like it belonged there. A few parking lot doves marched around pretending they had appointments. Pastor Lee met us by the side door, tie undone, sleeves rolled, like God had called him before his alarm. He took my hands in his big warm ones and let me set the story between us like a heavy bowl. He listened like the good men do. No interruptions, no fast fixes. Just that preacher's quiet that says, we're going to stand all the way up right now. Shauna's a planner, I told him. I think she believes she's doing a smart thing. I think she believes I won't notice until it's polite to say nothing. We're going to notice at sunrise, he said, and we're going to put sunlight on every page. He made 2 calls I heard, and one I didn't. One to a deacon who used to be a sheriff's deputy, asking about welfare checks and elder concerns. One to the church lawyer, a woman named Tanya with a voice like a clean blade. The third call he walked into his office to make, then came back with a printout. Here's a template affidavit, he said. We'll write down what you heard. You'll sign it here. We'll keep a copy and you'll carry one. I wrote exactly what I had heard. It's funny how exact your mind can be when you know somebody will try to tell you got it wrong. I wrote the words as they fell into my ear, those little pieces of Shauna's midnight voice. She's getting worse. Tomorrow I'll take her down there to sign. After that, everything will be simple. I signed with my blue pen, the way my hand has known to sign since my boys' field trip forms and the first car I got on layaway. Pastor stamped it with the church's little notary seal. Tanya had left 1 year ago for when people needed to swear by what was true and couldn't make it downtown. At the credit union, Miss Teresa, with the gray streak and the candy bowl, clicked at her computer like a woman dispatching flies. We show a contact change request, she said. Submit it online. She glanced over her glasses and then back at the screen. It didn't stick. Whoever submitted didn't have your authentication phrase. What's my phrase? I asked, testing her. She smiled without smiling. Ma'am, only you can say. I nodded. Peach cobbler, I told her. That's the one. She entered it, put a do not change without in-person verification note on my accounts, and printed the page where it said, Owner, Ruth E. Carter, in letters that looked like they could do sit-ups. When she was done, she leaned in, hand cupped around her words like kindness. You ain't the first grandma we've done this for. You won't be the last. Sugar gets poured on poison all the time. We try to be a toothbrush. At the county clerk, Ms. Glass wore a scarf the color of marigolds and a look that told me she ate policy for breakfast. We'll print your deed, she said, and we'll attach a notice of interest. It ain't the same as a restraining order, but it's like leaving a sticky note on the file that says, do not play games. If any convenience transfer lands, we'll flag you. She printed the newest record, my name, my address, my lot number, like a song nobody can sing on your behalf. You have, folks? She asked, not looking up. I got a church, I said. That's better sometimes, she replied, stamping the page as if she were nailing a board straight. By 8:55 a.m., I had a folder thick enough to prop a door. Dot drove us back toward Marcus's street. The rain finished with itself, the clouds like cooling iron. My plan was simple. I'd walk in, sit at the table, and ask to see the forms, sunlight in every window. I would not yell, I would not shake. I would say, "Put them on the table," and I'll be reading, not guessing. I would wear my church voice, the one that can coo at babies and corral wolves. My phone buzzed. Marcus. "Ma, where you at? Shauna says you left a note. Everything good?" I looked at Dot. She raised both brows and one shoulder. "Tell the truth." "I'm with Dot," I said. "Had to take a little walk. Be home in 10. "Okay," he said, a little breath of relief in it. "Shauna's got a lady coming by, insurance forms, I think, for your safety. I want you to be straight, okay?" "I plan to be," I said, and hung up before my voice could remember other words. Dot pulled to the curb. I saw my house, no, their house, sitting there acting exactly like a house. Scrubbed steps, nice wreath, baby stroller parked proud on the porch. The front window showed the pale geometry of the kitchen island. And there was Shauna, moving like someone had given her a cue, and she was ready for her scene. A woman I didn't know sat beside her, pearls too tight, lips too pink, briefcase unzippered like a secret. Marcus stood a little off, folding and unfolding a dish towel the way my boy does when he can feel weather and he can't find the umbrella. "Want me to come in?" Dot asked. "I think I need to go first," I said, "but don't go far." "Child," she told me, "I'm the kind of far that lives on your porch." I got out. Grass wet, cane steady, folder tucked against my ribs like a second heart. When I opened the door, the smell of Shauna's candle, Georgia peach, reached for me, a pretty smell trying to herd me someplace soft. I set my folder on the counter with a thud that said it didn't know how to float. "Morning," I said. "What we signing?" Shauna flashed me her church smile. "Oh, Ms. Ruth, don't be nervous. This is just a little safety net. This is Mrs. Lively. She's a notary. We'll make sure you're protected." "Protected from what?" I asked, taking a stool. Slow, like the day had all the minutes God promised. "Spelling errors?" Mrs. Lively tittered and produced a pen. Shauna slid a form toward me, lines highlighted like a map to somebody else's treasure. Consent, it said, and durable and authorized contact, Shauna Hall Carter. "Where's Marcus on this?" I asked, looking at my boy. "Why is his name not first?" "It's faster my way," Shauna said, "and you know how Marcus is about paperwork. He gets flustered." "He can do his taxes," I said. "He can read a form." I turned to him. "Baby?" Marcus ran his palm over his head, then set both hands on the island like a man begging wood to make a decision for him. "It's just for now, Ma, to help with your meds and bills until your ankle's right. Shauna keeps us organized. You know that." "I know she keeps something," I said, and pulled the paper closer. The text looked friendly, which made me respect it less. The little boxes smiled. There it was. Transfer of Assistance Authority. Permission for a primary caregiver to manage essential accounts and a property exception, residential. A neat clause about how, should I struggle with executive tasks, my authorized contact could consolidate property and financial assets for ease of care. I laughed then, lightly, like a lady, for the sake of the room. "You do know I taught 5th grade fractions for 12 years, right? I can consolidate numbers. I can also read." Marcus sighed. Shauna tilted her head. "Ms. Ruth, don't make this hard." "I was born hard," I said softly, so the baby monitor wouldn't learn the wrong lesson. "And I was born kind. What I won't be is easy." I reached into my folder and laid out my papers like a Sunday spread. My deed copy, the credit union printout, pastor's affidavit, the county clerk note with Ms. Glass's stamp showing she has eyebrows that can ruin a morning. I slid the affidavit forward so Mrs. Lively could see it. She was the kind who doesn't like smudges on truth. Mrs. Lively's pink lips thinned. Shauna's smile cracked just a hair, then plastered itself back in place. "What's this?" she asked, picking up the affidavit with 2 fingers, like she'd found a stray hair in her grits. "That," I said, "is the sound of your voice at 2:47 a.m. when the Lord forgot to teach you whispering manners." Marcus looked at Shayna. He looked at me. Then he did a thing I loved him for. He put his hand flat on the counter to stop it from wobbling like a boat. "Shanna," he said. Not sweet, not mean. Simply a man calling his wife's name when he wants understanding to be their 4th meal. "What is Mama talking about?" Shauna might have lowered her eyes. She might have cried. She did not. She smiled at me wider, like I'd suggested we try a different playlist. "Ms. Ruth," she cooed, "I love you. I have since I met Marcus. But you forget things." She tapped the paper. "These are safety forms. If you don't sign them, you put us all at risk." "Oh," I said, letting that syllable be the smallest boat I could float across the room. "So now love comes with a clipboard." The baby monitor crackled. Jada cooed, a little bird gargling sunlight. My heart knocked at that sound. My grandson, when he was small, used to hum the same way when the cartoons came on. I wondered if babies hum because they trust somebody's feet to come down the hall. "Marcus," I said, eyes on him, "I will not sign anything I ain't read. If you want to make a safety plan with me, not at me, we can talk. We can put your name where it belongs, and we can put the words so they behave. But I will not sign a stranger into my life." "Mrs. Lively," I added, turning, "you might as well put that pen back. It's tired." She did. Her lips pressed together so tight they turned the color of old paper. Shauna's eyes went flat, not angry, not even offended. Flat, like she had put on a face that could be laundered. "You're confused," she said, and those 2 words reached across the counter and pinched my cheek like my kindergarten teacher used to do when she'd mistaken me for another little girl. "You're anxious. It's okay. I scheduled a consult with Dr. Kemp for 11. He'll evaluate you. We'll let him decide." "We'll let me decide," I said, "and I've decided we need more folks in the kitchen." I pulled my phone out, pressed call. "Pastor," I said when he answered, "could you come by, bring Tanya if she's free?" Shauna's eyebrows climbed in surprise the way cats do when ceiling fans turn on. "We don't need church in this," she said. "This is family." "I am the church," I said, and the room went quiet the way rooms do when they realize a woman has brought her whole name into it. Dot knocked then. 2 soft taps, 2 loud. I opened the door. She stepped in like she'd been born knowing when to show up, slid her eyes over the scene, let them rest on the folder, the notary, the baby monitor, the paper in Shayna's hand. "Good morning," she sang. "I brought muffins." She set a Tupperware on the counter, then put both hands on her hips like a woman ready to add chapters. "Who is this?" Mrs. Lively asked, offended on behalf of the idea of order. "A witness with a sweet tooth," I said, "and a neighbor with a long memory." Dot winked at me and pulled up a stool. "So, what are we signing?" she asked innocently enough to make a liar itch. Shauna's mouth tightened. "Nothing if Ms. Ruth is going to make a scene." "I don't make scenes," I said. "I make breakfast and boundaries." The doorbell rang again. Pastor Lee filled the doorway and somehow made the room bigger. Behind him, Tanya stepped in, tablet in one hand, glasses perched where truth can see itself. "We're here to help," Pastor said, which is church for we're here to keep a full-grown situation from running off the table. Tanya scanned the forms, eyebrows moving just enough to register weather. "Ms. Hall-Carter," she said to Shanna, "these are authorizations that shift medical consent and financial contact to you. That's a lot of trust to request at 9 a.m. with a sleeping baby and a notary already warmed up." "It's for her good," Shauna replied. "She gets confused." "Oh," Tanya said. She walked around the island, stopped beside me. "Ms. Carter, what day is it?" "Tuesday," I said. The Tuesday where folks think old women don't read. And where do you live? In my house, 3 miles from the church, with the rose bush that fights in June. What are you doing here? Letting my ankle be a guest and my wits be the host. I smiled at Tanya. Want me to draw a clock? I can draw the one my mama used to smack when it lied about being slow. Tanya laughed low. We won't need the clock just yet. Marcus stood between us all like a man in a 5-way conversation with his heart. I saw his boy face and his man face do a little shuffle. He looked at Shauna, who he truly loves, and at me, who he truly loves, and tried to hold both without dropping either. We can slow down, he said finally. We can read. Shauna blinked at him, then at the circle of people who had stepped into the living room like evidence. I watched her calculation, fast and precise, chalkboard neat, decide something about brunch and audiences. Her smile returned, brighter, bigger, hollower. Of course, she said. We can slow down. Mrs. Lively, would you mind giving us privacy for a bit? Mrs. Lively took her pen like a sword and slid it into her purse. Call me when you're ready, she said to Shauna. To me, bless your heart, with the kind of tone that means fold quietly. She left. Pastor sat. Tanya sent a message to somebody whose number begins with 404DA, judging by the area code. Dot poured coffee like it could anchor the day. I pushed my papers forward. Here's what we're not going to do, I said. We are not going to pretend I am a purse you can carry where you please. We are not going to say safety and point it at my name. We are not going to let any doctor I didn't choose tell the court I left a burner on when I made oatmeal in the microwave. Oatmeal, Dot said, nodding like scripture. Then Jada cried, one big outraged note, and every adult in the room caved, because babies hold tiny gavels that strike our ribs. I stood first, ankle and all. Let me, I said. I know that cry. That's the one that means, change me then, sing. I walked down the hall, cane tapping, heart doing a smaller, proud echo. I lifted that warm little person and held her against my shoulder. She smelled like milk and the inside of miracles. In the rocker, I fed her, watching sunlight climb the far wall like it had somewhere important to be. Babies live in now better than any of us. Her eyes went from storm to thaw. She grabbed my finger like we'd struck a bargain last week, and this was the handshake. Your mama loves you, I whispered into her hair. Your daddy loves you. Your grandma loves you enough to stand up in a thunderstorm without an umbrella. She sighed, milk drunk, and blinked up at me like the judge had ruled in favor of Nap. When I came back to the kitchen, Tanya had my affidavit open. Pastor had his palms flat, and Marcus had the towel folded into squares, so precise he could have joined the army on the spot. Shauna stood by the sink, staring at the backyard like it might pass her an alibi through the glass. I handed Jada to Marcus. He cuddled her close. Nose in her hair, eyes closed like a prayer you trust more if you don't look at it. You can be mad at me, I told Shauna, for slowing down your morning. You can call me stubborn. You can call me cautious. What you can't call me is confused. Shauna's jaw worked once, twice. Then she said the softest thing and the worst. I'm just trying to make us secure. Secure from what? I asked. From me having a key to my own door? She looked at Marcus as if there were a teleprompter in his face. He didn't read it. He kissed the baby's hair instead. Tanya cleared her throat. Ms. Hall-Carter, we'd like to see any paperwork you've prepared or any communications you've had with Dr. Kemp's office, and we'd like to reschedule that consult so Ms. Carter can choose a provider. If you refuse, we can request a welfare check from the county and a protective order regarding her medical consent. Shauna's eyes flashed then. That quick lightning good liars try to hide under a compliment. You would do that to family? She asked. I would do that for family, Tanya said. The doorbell rang again. 3 brisk chimes. Pastor stepped into the foyer, opened the door. A woman in a neutral blazer, hair in a careful bun, stepped in with a smile she'd practiced on the drive. "Good morning," she sang. "I'm here from Peach Care Home Services. We had an appointment. Care plan evaluation for Miss Carter?" Shauna's lips parted in relief that looked like rescue. "Yes," she said way too fast. "Come in." I looked at Dot. She looked at me. The room changed temperature. Tanya's eyebrows climbed. Pastors' hands found the prayer position they use at funerals and graduations both. "I didn't schedule that," I said. The woman checked her clipboard. "Scheduled by a Ms. Hall Carter," she said, not caring who wore the name like a coat. "We'll just need a signature to proceed with the in-home safety assessment and care transfer proposal." "My signature?" I asked. "Preferably," she said, "but we can proceed with a verbal if the primary caregiver authorizes." Shauna opened her mouth. I raised my hand. "Before we do any of that," I said, hand steady as the day is long, "I would like to see the paperwork, all of it, and I'd like to call my doctor, and I'd like my son to read line 4 out loud in front of our pastor, our neighbor, and our attorney." The Peach Care woman smiled, bigger. "Of course," she said, flipping to line 4 and sliding the paper over so Marcus could read. He did. Slowly. His voice was a boy's and a man's at once, and he tripped on the words, "temporary consolidation of property," the way truth makes you stumble sometimes just to slow you enough to see it. He stopped, put his finger on the line, looked up at his wife, then at me. "Shauna," he said, quiet and sad in a way that felt like church when the choir gets to the verse we all know. "What is this?" She started to answer. Then she didn't. Then she smiled again, a white flag pressed into the shape of teeth. "It's a plan," she said, "so your mother won't get hurt." "Or get away," I said. The room held its breath. Even the fridge hushed. Dot reached into her purse and set a tiny, flat recorder on the counter like a piece of candy. "Just so we remember who said what," she murmured. Shauna made a sound that wanted to be a laugh and couldn't find its shoes. "Oh, Ms. Dot," she said, "you really think you're the police?" "No," Dot said, popping open her muffin container because the living need to eat, even in the court of the kitchen. "I think I'm old. The old carry pens and little machines and the names of people who answer phone calls." The Peach Care woman cleared her throat. "Shall we proceed?" she asked, already uncapping her pen. I put my hand on my folder. Pastor nodded. Tanya lifted her tablet. Marcus adjusted the baby on his shoulder and put the towel down like surrender. Shauna's eyes did that flat thing again, like someone closed a curtain from the inside. We all leaned toward the paper at once, and that's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I let it buzz. It buzzed again and again. Then a text. Dr. Kemp's office confirming 11 a.m. Bring ID, insurance card, caregiver. I looked up at Shauna. She looked at the floor. I looked at the Peach Care woman. She looked at her pen. I looked at my son. His face had learned something his heart hadn't caught up to yet. And then, through the open back window, a voice floated in from the alley. 2 neighborhood boys talking loud like boys do, cutting through grown folks' troubles with the emergency of a basketball game. "Yo, you hear? Officer Jacobs. He just turned on the block, some kind of wellness call." The doorbell rang a 4th time, quick with authority. Dot's eyes went wide and bright at once. Pastor stood. Tanya slid her tablet into her bag, like a magician closing one trick to open another. I gripped my cane and breathed once, deep and long, and whispered to the baby on Marcus's shoulder, "Hush now, Angel." Grown folk about to use their inside voices outside. The knob turned. The door opened. A sheriff's deputy with kind eyes and a camera on her chest stepped in and said, "Good morning. We received a report of potential elder exploitation at this address. My name is Deputy Jacobs. Who here is Ms. Ruth Carter?" I raised my hand. Shauna's smile finally fell off her face, and the room, which had been pretending to be a kitchen, became exactly what it was, a place where truth could be served hot. The moment Deputy Jacob stepped inside, something in me steadied. Maybe it was the way her voice filled the doorway, firm but not cruel. Or maybe it was because for the first time that morning, somebody else had said my full name like it belonged to me. Shauna froze where she stood, the kind of stillness that isn't peace, just calculation. Marcus looked like a man trying to hold back both lightning and love. The baby, bless her heart, giggled, and the sound cut through the tension like sunlight through fog. "Yes, ma'am," I said, raising my hand a little higher. "I'm Ruth Carter." The deputy nodded. "Miss Carter, are you safe right now?" I swallowed hard and looked around the room. Pastor Lee stood behind me like a wall made of prayer. Dot was at my elbow, hand on my wrist, steady as an oak. Tanya had her tablet open again, already tapping notes. "I am now," I said softly, "but I believe someone was trying to take advantage of me." Shauna scoffed. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice cracking for the first time all morning. "She's confused. She called the bank and forgot her password. She misplaces bills. I've been trying to help her, and now I'm being treated like a criminal?" Deputy Jacobs turned her head toward Shauna, polite but unmoved. "Ma'am, I'll speak to everyone, one at a time. For now, please have a seat." "I don't need to sit." "Please," the deputy said again, a single syllable with the weight of the law inside it. Shauna sat. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Officer, I'm Marcus Carter. This is my wife, Shayna, and our daughter, Jada. I didn't call anybody, so I'm just trying to understand what's going on." "That's fine," Deputy Jacob said. "We received a report from Pastor Lee about potential financial coercion involving an elder in the household. Our job is to verify everyone's safety and gather information." Pastor Lee raised his hand slightly. "That's correct," he said. I felt obligated as both her pastor and a mandated reporter. Shauna's head whipped toward him. "You called the police on your own congregation." "I called them for her," he said evenly, "not on anyone." The deputy motioned for me to follow her toward the dining room. We sat at the table, the same one Shanna had decorated with a vase of fake lilies last Easter, and she took out a small notebook. "Tell me what happened, Miss Carter," she said, "from your point of view." I told her everything, the midnight conversation, the papers on the counter, the bank calls, the word caregiver showing up where it didn't belong. As I spoke, my own voice surprised me. It wasn't shaking. It was tired, sure, but it had the weight of somebody who's done being doubted. I handed her my notebook and the affidavit Tanya and Pastor had witnessed earlier. She read carefully, lips moving as her eyes followed my words. When she looked up, her eyes had softened. "You did the right thing keeping notes," she said. "You'd be surprised how often people don't. This is strong evidence." I nodded. I learned a long time ago that paper remembers better than people. She smiled at that, then jotted something down. "Would you be comfortable staying somewhere else for a few nights while we sort this out?" "I've got my own house," I said, 3 miles down the road. It's mine, and I've got the deed to prove it." "Perfect," she said. "We'll make sure you get there safely today." That word, safely, hit me like cool water. For the first time in weeks, I could imagine the smell of my own living room again, the feel of my quilt, the hum of my fridge singing its small, loyal song. When we went back into the kitchen, Shauna was standing, arms crossed, fury coiled behind her polite smile. "Are we done playing victim yet?" she asked. "Because some of us have jobs." "Ma'am," the deputy said, "please calm down." Shauna laughed, but it was the kind of laugh you use to hide panic. "Oh, don't you worry, officer, I'm calm. I just can't believe this woman would accuse me of something so ugly after everything I've done for her. I cook, I clean, You open her mail?" Tanya interrupted. "What?" Tanya's eyes gleamed behind her glasses. "Miss Carter told us her mail was being opened without her permission. Did you do that?" "I was just trying to help." "Did you or didn't you?" Tanya asked again. Shauna hesitated, then muttered, "Yes, sometimes, because she forgets." Dot let out a low whistle and leaned back in her chair. "Child, you confessing faster than Sunday altar call." Shauna glared at her, but Dot didn't flinch. "And the call to Peach Care Home Services?" Tanya continued. "You made that appointment too?" Shauna straightened her shoulders. "Yes, because she needs help. She's not well. She's paranoid and she—" "That's enough," Marcus said quietly. The room stilled. He'd been silent so long that his voice cut through like a knife. His hands were on the counter, knuckles white, his face pale with something I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe, or disbelief, or the kind of heartbreak that comes from watching two women he loves stand on opposite sides of a fault line. "Shauna," he said, "tell me the truth. Did you really plan to have her sign something about the house?" Shauna looked at him, her eyes darting to the deputy, to me, back to him. "It wasn't like that," she said weakly. "It was just paperwork to simplify things." "Paperwork that puts her house in your name," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "You were going to do it behind my back." She started to protest, but he raised a hand. "Stop! Don't, just stop." Deputy Jacob spoke quietly into her radio, requesting a case number and a social worker. "We're going to open an investigation," she said. "No one's under arrest yet, but this situation needs documentation." Shauna looked ready to explode. "You can't just barge in here and take sides." "We're not taking sides," the deputy said evenly. "We're protecting an elder citizen." Marcus turned to me, tears glassing over his eyes. "Ma," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I didn't see any of this." I touched his hand, the same hand that used to clutch mine when thunder scared him as a boy. "I know, baby," I said. "Sometimes love makes us miss the quiet noises." Dot dabbed her eyes with a napkin. "And sometimes," she said, "those noises grow into alarms." The deputy finished her notes, then looked at me again. "Miss Carter, let's get you back home. I can escort you if you like." "I'd appreciate that," I said, "but I'd like to say something first." She nodded. "Go ahead." I turned toward Shauna. Her eyes were glassy, but not from guilt, more like fury held in by manners. "Shauna," I said softly, "I opened my door to you because you were my son's wife. I believed that meant family. But family don't whisper about signatures in the dark. Family don't hide papers that take another woman's name off her own home. I don't hate you. I just won't hand you my peace to play with." She swallowed hard. "You think you're so perfect, Ruth? You think you're better than me? You don't know what it's like trying to hold this family together. You don't know what it's like struggling to make ends meet while you sit in your little house with no mortgage." "I do know," I said, voice steady. "I just never tried to solve struggle by stealing what wasn't mine." Marcus closed his eyes. "Shauna," he whispered, "please stop." The deputy took my arm gently. "Let's go, ma'am." Dot insisted on driving behind the patrol car. "Just in case the county gets lost," she said. As we pulled out of the driveway, I caught one last glimpse of Marcus through the rearview mirror. He was standing in the doorway holding his baby close, eyes fixed on the patrol lights as they faded down the street. Shauna had turned away, back toward the kitchen, her shoulders shaking, though I couldn't tell if it was from anger or regret. The ride was quiet except for the hum of tires and the soft chatter on the deputy's radio. Atlanta morning traffic was starting to wake, and the smell of wet asphalt filled the air. I watched the trees pass by and thought about all the years I'd spent, trying to teach my students that honesty wasn't just about telling the truth, it was about refusing to live in lies. When we turned down my street, my little yellow house came into view. The roses out front had finally bloomed, stubborn and proud just like me. I felt tears sting my eyes, not from sadness, but from the relief of seeing something that still belonged wholly to me. Deputy Jacobs helped me inside, made sure the locks worked, and handed me a card. "You call me if anyone shows up here uninvited," she said. "You did everything right, Miss Carter. You should be proud." "I'm just tired," I admitted. She smiled. "Being tired doesn't mean you're weak. It means you fought." She left me standing in my doorway, cane in hand, the morning sun climbing through the window like a promise. I walked to the kitchen, set down my purse, and took a deep breath. Everything smelled the same: lemon oil, coffee grounds, the faint trace of lavender from the candle I'd left, half burned the day I moved in with Marcus. I touched the counter, my old wooden table, the photos on the wall, Marcus at graduation, my late husband with his fishing hat tilted, little Jada's first Christmas picture. I sat down and pulled out my notebook again. The next line I wrote wasn't about suspicion. It was about survival. I wrote, "Came home, still standing." Dot showed up half an hour later with a grocery bag and her trademark scolding tone. "I brought milk, eggs, and the kind of cornbread that don't crumble under pressure," she said, letting herself in like she always did. "How you holding up?" "I'm breathing," I said. "And that's worth something." She nodded. "You know they'll come around. Marcus loves you. He'll see what was happening." "I know," I said, though part of me didn't want to hope too loudly yet. Dot sat across from me, folded her hands, and said, "You ever notice how trouble comes in the same voice as concern? People say they're helping, but what they mean is they're helping themselves." "I noticed," I said, tracing the edge of my coffee mug, "but I won't let it happen again." That night, the house felt different, safer, quieter, but heavy with all that had been said and unsaid. I prayed for Marcus, for Jada, and yes, even for Shauna, because anger is easy, but forgiveness is what lets you sleep. Around 9, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Ma, I'm sorry, can I come by tomorrow? Just me." I stared at it a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Finally, I wrote back, "Door's always open for you, baby. Bring Jada." When I put the phone down, the house seemed to exhale. I pulled my quilt over my lap, turned on the little lamp by the couch, and let the TV hum in the background. The news anchor talked about traffic and storms, but all I could think about was how fast betrayal turns into weather. You never see it coming until you're drenched. Before I continue, if my story touches your heart, please subscribe so more voices like mine can be heard. The next morning, I woke to the smell of rain again, but this time it was gentle, tapping the windows like an old friend. I brewed a pot of coffee, the good kind from the farmer's market, and set out 2 cups. I wanted Marcus to feel welcome, even with all the hurt between us. At 10:15, his car pulled into the driveway. He came up the porch steps slow, like a man walking toward a truth he wished he'd seen sooner. When I opened the door, Jada reached for me immediately, her little hands patting my cheeks like she was checking to make sure I was real. Marcus looked exhausted. "Ma," he said quietly, "can we talk?" "Of course, baby. Come in." He sat at the table, holding his mug but not drinking. "They said there's going to be an investigation," he said. "Shauna's angry. She says I betrayed her, but I can't." He stopped, his voice breaking. "I can't defend what she did." "You don't have to," I said softly. "The truth can do that all by itself." He wiped his eyes. "She said she just wanted to make things easier, that she was scared about bills and insurance." "I believe that," I said, "but fear ain't a license. It's a warning." He nodded, staring down at his hands. "They're saying the county might ask questions about how long you were staying with us, about finances." "They can ask," I said. "I've got every receipt, every document, and every note. Let them." Marcus looked up at me then. Really looked. And I saw the boy he used to be, the one who once promised never to let anybody hurt me. "You shouldn't have had to protect yourself like that," he whispered. "I should have seen it." "You see now," I said. "That's what matters." He took a shaky breath, then reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Shauna packed up some of your things last night. I checked the bag before I brought it. He pushed the envelope toward me. There's also this. I opened it carefully. Inside was a folded apology note, written in Shauna's neat handwriting. I went too far. I thought I was helping. I see now I crossed a line. I'll talk to the investigator. I'm sorry, it wasn't much, but it was something. Do you believe her? Marcus asked. I believe she's sorry she got caught, I said, but maybe that's where healing starts. He nodded, silent tears slipping down. I don't know what's going to happen, Ma. Whatever it is, I said, we'll handle it the right way. You, me, and that baby girl, and when the time comes, you'll learn what every grown man eventually learns. Protecting your family sometimes means standing up to your own. He nodded slowly. You always know what to say. That's because I've been broke, heartbroken, and halfway to broke again, I said with a smile. Wisdom's just scars that healed with lessons under them. He laughed then, a real laugh, the first one in days. He stayed for lunch, leftover cornbread and black-eyed peas, and when he left, he hugged me long and tight. I'll keep you updated about the investigation, he said. The deputy said it could take a few weeks. I'm not going anywhere, I told him, and neither is the truth. When the door closed behind him, I felt something shift. Like the storm had passed but left the air cleaner. I knew there'd still be hard days ahead. There always are when family trust cracks. But I also knew this. I had my home, my peace, and my voice. And those three things together could stand against just about anything. Later that afternoon, I called Pastor Lee. It's quiet again, I told him. He chuckled. That's the kind of quiet you earn, Sister Ruth. Don't mistake it for emptiness. It's restoration. He paused. You want to give testimony at service next Sunday? Folks need to hear stories like yours. Might help somebody else speak up. I think I will, I said, but not yet. Let the ink dry first. He laughed softly. You take your time. The truth don't expire. After we hung up, I went out to the garden. The roses, bless them, were still leaning on the fence like old women gossiping about the weather. I touched one petal, soft and stubborn, and whispered, We made it. The sky above me cleared to a color you can't buy, somewhere between mercy and strength. I didn't know what would come next, whether the county would press charges or if Shauna would truly change. But I knew the woman I'd been the night I walked down that wet street at 4:39 a.m. had saved the one sitting here now, and that was enough. But as peace has a way of doing, it didn't last long before another ripple found me. 2 nights later, just after dinner, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, thinking it was a telemarketer, but something in my gut said, Answer. Ms. Carter? A man's voice said. This is Officer Haynes with the County Fraud Division. We're following up on your case. Yes, sir, I said. Is everything all right? There's been a development, he said. We found multiple applications submitted in your name, loan requests, credit card accounts, all with a secondary signature listed as Authorized Family Caregiver. My heart dropped. Shauna? That's what we're determining, he said. Can you come in tomorrow to make a statement? Bring any documentation you still have. I closed my eyes. So it wasn't over. The paperwork on the counter had just been the beginning. Of course, I said. I'll be there. When I hung up, the weight of it pressed down on me. I stared at my notebook lying open on the table, the ink still dark from the last entry. Then I picked up my pen and wrote, The truth is still moving. And I promised myself I'd move with it, slow if I had to, but steady. That night, as the crickets started their chorus, I sat by the window watching the streetlights flicker. Somewhere out there, Shauna was deciding her next move, but so was I. And this time, I wasn't walking alone into the dark. I had a pastor, a neighbor, a deputy, and a son who finally saw clear. The phone buzzed again. Dot this time. "You still awake?" she asked. "Barely." "Well, stay that way another 5 minutes," she said. "I just baked something you need before tomorrow." "What is it?" "Pecan pie," she said. "For strength." Dot came through the screen door with that pie held high like it was holy. "Fresh out the oven," she said, setting it down on the counter. The sweet smell of pecans and brown sugar filled the room, grounding me in something warm when the rest of my world still felt shaky. "You're gonna need this for strength tomorrow," she added, untying her apron. "I'll need it for peace, too," I said, managing a smile. Dot poured us each a cup of coffee, black and honest. "So," she said, "you ready to face them county folks? They can ask questions that make a saint feel guilty." "I'm ready," I said. "I've got my notebook, my receipts, and my voice. That's more than I had 2 nights ago." She nodded. "That's the Ruth I know." I barely slept that night, but it wasn't fear that kept me awake. It was clarity. I lay there listening to the rain tap the windows, going over every conversation, every small thing I'd ignored before. Sometimes the truth doesn't come all at once. It creeps in through the cracks until you can't deny it's sitting right there beside you. By morning, the rain had stopped. The air outside smelled like wet clay and second chances. I dressed neat, navy skirt, cream blouse, and my gold cross necklace my husband gave me our first Christmas. Dot drove me downtown, her gospel station humming low between us. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. When we arrived, the county building was busy with folks shuffling papers and the hum of old computers. Officer Haynes met us in the lobby, clipboard in hand. He was a tall man with kind eyes, the kind that can look at a mess without judging it. "Ms. Carter," he said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for coming. We're trying to get this cleared up before anyone else gets hurt." "Appreciate you, officer," I said. "I just want my peace back." He led us to a small interview room with beige walls and a humming ceiling light. "We've reviewed your affidavit," he began, "and the deputy's report, but something new came up. Someone tried to use your Social Security number to apply for a loan at Quicksure Finance last week. Do you recognize this signature?" He slid a photocopy across the table. I stared at it. The name written in cursive was mine, but the loops were wrong. The R leaned too far right, and the Carter ended in a flourish I'd never used a day in my life. "That's not my hand," I said. "That's an imitation." Dot leaned in and nodded. "I told you, Ruth, she had your mail too long. Lord knows what she copied." Officer Haynes jotted something down. "We traced the application to a computer registered under your daughter-in-law's name, but she claims her account was hacked." I folded my hands in my lap. "That woman's got more passwords than a spy. She didn't get hacked. She got greedy." He didn't respond, just nodded, his pen tapping the clipboard. "We'll let the investigators determine intent, but based on your evidence and the timeline, is looking like attempted financial fraud." The word sank in, heavy. Fraud. Such an ugly word for something that had slithered into my life wearing the face of family. After 2 hours of paperwork and signatures, my real ones this time, Officer Haynes stood, thanking me for cooperating. "You'll be contacted once we decide if charges will be filed," he said. "If you need a restraining order, the sheriff's office can expedite it." "I don't want revenge," I said. "I just want distance." He nodded. "That's often the wisest choice." On the way home, Dot was quiet until we reached the turn toward my street. Then she said, "You think Marcus will stay with her?" "I don't know," I said. "Marriage is a storm you can't judge from another porch." She looked at me, one eyebrow up. "You're a better woman than me. I'd have set that girl's wigs on fire." I laughed, and it felt good to hear that sound again. "Fire don't fix everything," I said. "Sometimes it just leaves smoke where love used to live." When we got home, there was a note tucked under my door in Marcus's handwriting. "Ma, please don't worry. We're figuring things out. I love you. Always." I held that note like a prayer, the paper trembling in my hands. Then I taped it to the fridge, right above the grocery list. Some things deserve to stay visible. Days passed. The house started to feel like home again. I spent mornings on the porch with my coffee, waving at neighbors, listening to the steady rhythm of normal life return. Marcus called every evening. Sometimes he brought Jada by, just the two of them. Other times, his voice carried a heaviness that told me things at his house weren't settled. One night, about a week later, he called and said, "Ma, can I come by tomorrow evening? Shauna wants to talk." I paused. "She wants to talk to me?" "Yes," he said softly. She's been seeing someone about her anxiety. She said she owes you an apology in person." I breathed, out slow. "All right," I said. "I'll listen, but I won't be tricked by tears." "I understand," he said. "She knows that too." I spent the next day baking, something simple, banana bread and sweet tea, because sometimes offering calm is the best armor you can wear. At 6:15, their car pulled up. Marcus came in first, Jada in her arms. Shauna followed behind, eyes swollen from crying, but posture still proud. "Evening," I said. "Evening," she echoed, voice low. We sat at the table, the same table where she'd once tried to take my name off my own house. I didn't rush her. She stared at her hands for a long while before finally speaking. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. I was scared. Money's been tight, and I thought if everything was in one place, we'd be safe. But I lied, and I crossed lines I can't uncross. I looked at her. "You didn't just cross lines, Shauna. You tried to erase me." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. I told the investigators everything. I gave them my laptop. They said they might drop the charges if I cooperate fully." "Then do it," I said. "Tell them everything. Start telling the truth, even when it burns." Marcus looked from her to me, eyes wet. "We're in counseling," he said quietly. "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I want my daughter growing up seeing people take responsibility." I nodded. "That's how healing starts." We sat in silence a while, the kind that isn't empty but full of what can't yet be said. Shauna reached into her purse, pulled out a small envelope and slid it toward me. "This is the check from selling my old car," she said. "You helped me when I moved down here, and I want to repay that debt." "I don't need your money," I said. "It's not about need," she whispered. "It's about making something right." I took the envelope, folded it once, and tucked it under my Bible. "All right then," I said. "That's where it'll stay until the truth finishes its work." Weeks turned into a month. The county closed its investigation with a written statement. Evidence supports attempted fraud. Suspect cooperated. Case resolved with restitution and counseling. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was enough. The next Sunday, Pastor Lee asked me again to share my testimony. I finally said yes. I wore my best hat, the blue one with the feather that always makes the choir smile, and stood before the congregation. My voice trembled at first, but once I started speaking, the words found their own rhythm. "I almost lost my peace," I told them. "Not because someone took it, but because I forgot how to protect it. The devil doesn't always come in strangers' church. Sometimes he comes smiling at your dinner table, asking for another helping of trust. But I learned something. I learned that faith without boundaries is just invitation, and I learned that even when family betrays you, the Lord can restore what was meant for harm." People nodded, some wiping tears. I saw Marcus in the back, holding Jada on his hip, and even Shauna beside him, her head bowed. I didn't need applause. Just seeing them standing there, still trying, still learning, was enough. After service, Pastor Lee hugged me. "You turned your storm into a sermon," he said. "I just told the truth," I said. "Truth is what saves us when love goes blind." That evening, the house was full again. Dot brought potato salad, Marcus grilled chicken out back, Shauna helped set the table. The air smelled like forgiveness trying to take root. Gospel played soft from the radio. Jada toddled across the floor in her pink socks, giggling every time someone called her name. When the sun dipped low, painting the porch gold, I stepped outside for a breath. The roses were blooming again, stubborn as ever. I touched one petal and smiled. Dot joined me, plate in hand. "You did good, Ruth," she said. "You came through the fire and kept your joy intact." "I almost lost it," I said. "But God don't let lessons go to waste." She nodded, taking a bite. "You gonna write this one down in that notebook?" I looked at her, smiled, and said, "Already did." Later that night, after everyone left and the house quieted down, I sat in my rocking chair, the quilt over my knees. The moonlight stretched across the floor like a silver path, and I followed it with my eyes until it disappeared under the door. I thought about everything. The whispers, the papers, the walk in the rain, the deputy's voice, the courtroom that never had to open, all of it. And then I thought about what came after. The strength that showed up in my own voice, the people who stood beside me, the small mercies that led me home. I reached for my pen and wrote the last line in my notebook: peace restored, lessons learned, family healing. Then I closed it and whispered into the quiet, "Thank you." This was my story. Now tell me, what part touched your heart the most?